Your job credibility is key to your salary, your level of responsibility, and your reputation. How valuable would it be if I were to give you 3 things you can do in your speeches to increase your credibility? The 3 things are, number 1, determine the subject area level of your audience. 2, project positive body language. And 3, become an expert at answering questions. So let's talk about why it's important to know what is the level of your audience in your subject area. Well, number 1 is you don't want to talk down to your audience. So whatever they know, to the best of your ability to find out, try to go up a level. Okay, people come to speeches so that they can learn something new. Okay? There's also a good reason for knowing what their level is, and that's so that you can incorporate things in your speech that, again, are at a level above. Seek feedback with preferably audience members before your presentation, if that's possible. You'll learn 2 things. You'll learn who is an advocate for your way of thinking, and maybe most importantly, who is not. Once you know who is not and have determined why they are not, you can inject into your speaking preparation arguments against what their objections maybe were. Ken Blanchard of the 1-Minute Manager fame says, feedback is the breakfast of champions. In the Air Force, we used to say it another way. We train the way we fight, and we fight the way we train. So you want to prepare the way you'll give the speech, and then give the speech the way you've prepared it. Professor Albert Mehrabian, Professor Emeritus of Psychology at UCLA, said that a full 55% of our communication is body language. Isn't that amazing? 55%. So let me give you a couple of quick tips on some body language. Eye contact. Make sure you have eye contact with the audience, but not a roving eye contact. Individual people in the audience. And break it up. Don't kind of do rapid fire. You may look at somebody over there and somebody over here. Facial expressions, very important. Whenever you're trying to emphasize a point in your speaking, you may want to squint your eyes and maybe bend over a little bit. It keys the audience into that's a very important part. I need to listen to that. Gestures. I'm already breaking one of my rules. If you can, don't hold anything in your hand because it cuts down on gestures. Posture. Be erect. Don't rock back and forth. Don't rock side to side. That doesn't mean you can't move when you speak, but move, stand erect, say a point, maybe move again. And finally, the elusive presence. What is presence? What is owning the room? Now, we know that action follows thought, but do you also know that thought can follow action? If we act as Dr. Norman Vincent Peale used to say in his positive speaking books, and we get some reaction from the audience, we can actually make that a reality. So act as you own the room. People will assume you own the room, and you will get the feeling of owning the room. So presence is very important. Now we come to the dreaded question and answer period. Why do we dread question and answer periods? We dread them because we don't know what questions are going to be asked. That's one of the big things about that. That's why we dread it. How can we combat that? Well, we can seek questions during the pre-presentation period with individual audience members if possible. What kind of questions do you think Joe would ask or Bob would ask or Mr. Smith? Your goal for speaking or answering questions is that you don't want to hear a question from the audience that you have not already heard in the practice session. A couple of things you may want to do also. Allow the questioner to finish the question. Have you ever been at a speech where the speaker doesn't actually allow the questioner to finish the question? Now, there's 2 reasons for doing that. Number 1, it's courteous to do that, and you always want to be courteous to your audience. The second thing is that when you allow someone in the audience to finish their question, it gives you time to think of an answer. Also, a second point is you may want to repeat the question, again, for two reasons. Number one is everyone in the audience might not have heard the question. And number two, it also gives you more time to think of an answer. And finally, if you really don't understand the question, there's really nothing wrong with you as a speaker asking a question of the questioner about their question. A lot of questions in there. She prepared meticulously. She tested her presentation ideas. And when she got to the question and answer period, the audience's knives came out. She answered the question and answer period looking at her feet. Yes, the answer is this, the answer is that. She looked at her feet throughout the whole presentation. What could have prevented her from acting that way? Well, I always said the audience came out with their knives. During the practice session, have people pepper you questions and make sure they come with sharper knives. Again, you don't want to hear a question for the first time during the question and answer period in the real presentation. You want to do that during the preparation portion. So I think we agreed at the beginning that job credibility is key in determining your salary, your level of responsibility, and your reputation. We talked about 3 methods of increasing your credibility. Number 1, know at what level your audience is on the subject so that you know what level of briefing you can do. Ensure the body language enhances presentation, all those 3 things, eye contact and so forth. And finally, become an expert answerer of questions. This in particular, the question and answer period, is a key place where you can increase your credibility in any speech. Implement these 3 tips and you'll see your credibility increase. How valuable would it be to increase your credibility?